to journalists who were within that royal rota. Harry denied any closeness in that relationship. They did also bring up the fact that he had a pseudonym on Facebook, allegedly, as Mr. Mischief.
I woke up to this courtroom moment the way one wakes up to a smashed alarm clock, stunned, irritated, and instantly aware that someone, somewhere, is blaming the wrong thing. The scene unfolded like a bonfire fed by excuses, crackling with indignation and lit by the familiar glow of self-pity. Prince Harry, once again centre stage, appeared to argue that his long, enthusiastic relationship with drugs was not the product of privilege, poor judgment, or personal choice, but the work of a shadowy villain with ink-stained fingers. According to this latest performance, the press poured the drinks, rolled the joints, and leaned in close to whisper, "Snort this, Harold, it'll help your brand." If you're watching Royal Scope, do remember to like, share, and subscribe, because this story gets stranger the longer you stare at it. This is the central problem with Harry's legal crusade, a problem that sits at the heart of every claim he brings. The man suing newspapers for accountability cannot take any himself. His lawsuits all swim in the same shallow pool, circling the same floating narrative debris. Harry is always the victim, forever wronged by faceless forces that somehow control his every move while demanding none of his agency. The court, inconveniently for him, deals in evidence rather than vibes. "The press made me do it" is not a legal argument. It's a tantrum with footnotes, an emotional outburst dressed up as jurisprudence. Listening to him, you'd think journalists forced him to drink until blackout, ordered him to use drugs, compelled him to lash out at photographers and prostitutes alike, and then sat him down to dictate lies about his own family. Apparently, the media also endangered the British government in public, ruined his usefulness as a human being, pressured him into marriage with someone remarkably similar to himself, and, in a truly astonishing flourish, made him boast in his own book about killing 25 Taliban fighters and likening them to chess pieces. At this point, the press deserves a knighthood for its alleged omnipotence. If it can orchestrate all of that, surely it can manage a parade. The spectacle would be funny if it weren't so relentlessly self-sabotaging. In court, Harry grew emotional, claiming the media made his wife's life miserable. It is touching, in a way, like watching someone clutch a comfort blanket in a thunderstorm. But it is also entirely irrelevant. The case concerns events that allegedly occurred before he even met her. Emotion is not evidence, and sympathy does not travel back in time to manufacture illegal acts. The law, cold and unromantic, does not pause proceedings to wipe away tears. If the scrutiny truly wounds him so deeply, there is a radical solution hiding in plain sight. Stop talking. Drop the titles. Quit posturing as royalty while demanding privacy like a monk in a cave. Live a normal life, quietly, without podcasts, documentaries, memoirs, or televised grievances, and miracle of miracles, people will stop caring. Attention is a fire that needs oxygen. Harry, however, continues to douse it with petrol while insisting he longs for darkness. Harry has never let facts interfere with his truth, and he told us as much in Spare, where feelings are elevated to sacred testimony. His method is consistent and unwavering. Emotion equals reality, and reality should bend accordingly. Memory becomes malleable, events soften or sharpen depending on how they serve the narrative, and responsibility is forever outsourced to someone else. Unfortunately for him, courts do not run on personal mythology. Judges are not there to validate feelings, they are there to weigh facts. Yes, taking down the Daily Mail would be a trophy for him. Of all British papers, it has shown no mercy to Harry or Meghan since Oprah, and certainly not since Spare. The hostility is mutual, the resentment palpable. But media grudges are not legal proof, and spite is not causation. Wanting someone to be guilty does not make them so. The law is stubbornly resistant to wishful thinking. The historical record, awkwardly, refuses to cooperate with Harry's story. Charles once sent him to work on a cattle station in Australia in 2003 because of drug concerns, a parental intervention that predates many of the alleged press sins. Years earlier at Eton, his habits were already notorious. Royal historian Robert Lacey wrote that after William left school, a lonely 15-year-old Harry spiraled into heavy cannabis use, long before any supposed press conspiracy could plausibly claim credit. The timeline is inconvenient, but it is stubborn. Harry himself has admitted experimenting with cocaine at 17, describing it in spare with the self-pitying poetry of a boy desperate to feel different, to feel something. Journalists write to make money, not to engineer addictions. They report what happens. They do not puppet master teenage princes into risky behavior. Yet in Harry's worldview, everyone is always thinking about Harry. That paranoia makes him easy to manipulate and reveals a striking lack of critical thinking, a sense that the world revolves around his emotional weather. Even in Spare, when a female editor allegedly contacted the palace about his drug use, Harry responded not with facts, but with grotesque personal insults. If her reporting was wrong, her character was irrelevant. The venom only exposed how thin his case really was. Attack the messenger when you can't challenge the message. It is a tactic as old as outrage itself, and just as transparent. Watching this play out in court feels like observing a man arguing with gravity. He insists it should be lighter for him, more forgiving, less inclined to pull him down. The judge listens politely, unmoved, because gravity does not negotiate. Courts do not accept baseless blame-shifting, and judges are not therapists. They cannot prescribe growth, only consequences. What makes the performance so exhausting is its predictability. Every time the narrative wobbles, Harry reaches for the same tools. Emotion. Blame. A villainous press. A wounded wife. A tragic childhood. They are deployed like talismans, meant to ward off scrutiny. But repetition dulls their power, and in a courtroom, it can be fatal. The more he insists everyone else is responsible, the clearer it becomes that he has never truly interrogated his own role. There is a strange, almost tragic irony at the heart of it all. Harry wants to be seen as a man wronged by institutions, yet he clings to the symbols of those institutions whenever it suits him. He wants privacy, but sells intimacy. He wants accountability, but refuses it. He wants to be treated as ordinary, but insists on exceptional treatment. The contradictions stack up until they resemble a Jenga tower of grievances, wobbling with every new claim. If you're finding this analysis on Royal Scope compelling, remember to like, share, and subscribe, because these courtroom dramas are not just about one man. They are about the collision between celebrity culture and the rule of law, between personal narrative and public accountability. Harry is not unique in this, merely louder than most. In the end, Harry is not sabotaged by the press. He is sabotaged by his refusal to grow up. Growth requires accepting that choices have consequences and that discomfort is not always injustice. It requires recognizing that being criticized is not the same as being persecuted. Courts exist to draw those lines clearly, and they will not redraw them to spare anyone's feelings. The tragedy is not that the media made him do it. The tragedy is that he still believes that excuse should work. As the courtroom lights dim and the legal arguments grind on, one thing becomes increasingly clear. The fire he woke up to was not lit by journalists. It was built slowly, excuse by excuse, choice by choice, until blaming the alarm clock felt easier than admitting who knocked it off the table.